Hi, welcome back to my channel. I took a little break in recording my bullet journal plan with me videos, but now I'm back with my November theme, which is Gilmore Girls. Gilmore Girls is one of my comfort shows that I regularly leave on in the background, and it always reminds me of the fall season. I personally try to celebrate and acknowledge fall as long as I can, so I was really excited to put this together. To prep for recording this plan with me video, I made some homemade Thai tea boba so I had fuel for the long setup session ahead of me. Once I was ready to dive in, I grabbed my mustard yellow Tombow dual brush pen to start filling in my cover spread. All of the supplies used in this video will be linked in my description box below. I just buy packaged boba from the Asian market and brew different teas at home. It's so easy. To me, it was a no-brainer to have the cover theme be Luke's Diner's logo. It's such a symbol of the show, not only because of the location that it represents, because they frequent Luke's Diner so much, but the coffee cup also makes you think of all the different coffee moments in the show. I did get a little concerned that given how much ink I put on the page would cause it to bleed through, but luckily it didn't. This Denic notebook has 100 GSM paper, which while not the thickest paper of a lot of the other commonly used bullet journals, it still holds up pretty well to these water-based pens. I tried so hard to find a font that was similar to the one Luke used as a reference, but in the end I just kind of winged it based on how he made his letters on the sign. I also want to take a step back and acknowledge that I've hit 1K subscribers, which is insane. Thank you to all of you who decided to subscribe from my first YouTube short that I posted recently about my October spread. This channel has primarily been about food and travel from my food blog, but in the last year I've decided to showcase my bullet journals and with these plan with me videos because I personally love watching them and creating these spreads. So I hope you'll continue to enjoy and follow. I've been bullet journaling for about 2 years now, and I'm still learning new things and making adjustments to my journals as the months go on. If all of that sounds good to you, be sure to hit the subscribe button for more. To make it more fall, I doodled different leaves around the sign and fill them in with the different fall colors, including green and brown. While leaves do turn these brilliant bright hues, you still see a mix of some green leaves that haven't turned colors yet, and browning leaves from ones that have already fallen. I then took my Stabilo fine liner, which is the finest one I have, at 0.45 millimeters. I think that's the measurement. I do have a Sakura micron pen too, but it's slightly thicker at 0.4 millimeters. I don't have a whole collection of micron pens, just because I personally find them a little pricey and I'm not going to use all of them, so I'm happy with this one. At first I was going to outline the leaves to make them stand out, but then I felt like the sign would look really weird if it also wasn't outlined, so I did that too. Now I'll be moving to the left and working on my calendar spread. First I went in and started filling out the centers of my daisies. If you remember at the end of season 1, Lorelai's engaged to Max Medina and he sends her 1,000 yellow daisies, which looks so pretty on the show. I actually really liked him as a match for Lorelai. I was always a little sad she turned him down. I also first saw that actor in this mini-series called The 10th Kingdom before I ever watched Gilmore Girls, and I remember loving both that show and his character, so I have a spot for Max Medina. I actually found the daisies a little challenging to draw because if you look at daisies or if you look at daisy drawings, they're not perfectly symmetrical and have a lot of petals. Next, I filled in the header for the calendar and then outlined the lines for the table. I've been enjoying these small rectangular boxes for my calendars lately. I put in key events at a high level like birthdays or appointments, and then in my weeklies I can add in the full details like the time and the location. I like being able to see my important dates at a glance quickly. I literally envision a calendar in my head when I'm thinking about what's to come up in the week or for the month for myself, so I find having an actual calendar versus a list of important dates much more useful. I referenced a serif font I found on DaFont that looks similar to the Gilmore Girls logo font. I like to fill in my actual spread such as the days of the week and the calendar dates, using a pen. And my absolute favorite pens are the Pilot G2 pens. This one is actually made of recycled bottles. I'm not sure if you noticed at first glance during this video, but my notebook is actually falling apart. I've used like 5 other Danik lay flat notebooks and I've never had this issue. While the binding has loosened from this journal and a lot of the pages are no longer adhering to the spine. I'm messing up my journal because the pages are trying to fall out and you can see it right on the first page. It's literally just there. It just fell out. Okay, moving on to my next spread. It may seem like I set the cover up super quickly with the time lapse, but as you can see from my boba here, a lot of time has passed. I think at least 30 minutes. This spread looks a little plain, but that's because I wanted to draw out a plaid pattern border using orange, dark blue, and light gray. Plaid is of course a big part of Luke's uniform, so it had to be referenced here. I saw Mochi BUJO do this last year in her journal, and I've wanted to attempt it ever since. It was easier than I thought actually to do this, but I did not make the straightest lines even with the ruler. As you can see, when I'm nearly done with the habit tracker page, I realized that I extended the plaid pattern way too far. It's supposed to be like a 2-inch border around the page, not cover the entire page. But of course it was too late, so I just decided to leave it as is on the habits page, but make sure to maintain the border idea for my dashboard spread. You can see how busy it gets when I extend the pattern across the whole page. In hindsight, I also would have chosen a lighter orange since this was brighter than I intended. These pages are also blank, so I don't even have the dot grid to rely on, which I've become very fond and reliant of. It's so much easier to make boxes, lines, or tables with the dot grid. It still turned out good in the end and I really liked it, so that's what counts. As much as of a perfectionist I am, I'm learning to let go of my small mistakes rather than wanting to rip out the page and starting over. It's good to embrace the imperfection. I did also try to use the thinner tip on the Tombow pen, but the lines came out too thin for my liking, so I kept it with the felt tip instead. If I'm not filming my Plan With Me setups, I actually do this decorating and setup part in different stages over a few days. Whenever I get a chance, usually in the evening after work, when I'm watching some TV before I go to bed, versus doing it all in one long sitting. Again, I also find that easier to do versus spending a couple hours like this. Of course, while creating the spread, my camera ran out of storage, so this footage cuts off a bit. Kind of worked out for the best because I was tired, so I decided to pick up the next evening, hence the lighting change. Since I took up room for the tracker headings, I cut up little slips of paper to write down the headers and paste them in. I didn't start using habit trackers until spring 2020 because staying home all the time made it hard to stay motivated to do certain things and, time lost on meaning. I actually looked back at my July spreads for what I labeled the different trackers since I took them out for a few months, because I knew I wouldn't really be focusing on them. I was in the process of packing up my house, doing a distance move, and then unpacking, so I knew I wouldn't fill these in and keep track realistically. So I felt it was best to bring them back. Once I was more settled in, I took my Tombow glue pen and added the glue to the backs of the paper. I actually don't like this glue pen, and I probably wouldn't buy it again in the future. I don't think it's tacky enough to actually stick something. It's really hard to dispense the glue from the pen. You kind of have to press it onto the page to get it to come out, which is really awkward. I do like the idea of this glue pen though, because it's useful for small things like this or for touching up corners. Next, I took my micron pen to fill in the header. I chose a thicker pen simply because it'd just be easier to fill it in. Some of my habits are pretty obvious in like the skincare one, but ones I'm creating, the ones that I called create, references me either taking like a photo, working on a video, or something else hands-on that isn't writing. And a lot of this is also related to my food blog, which you can also find in the description box. Next, I moved on to my dashboard spread. I added this term after I saw, I think, Amanda Rachel and BUJO start using it. There's a smart way to title this catch-all page of lists that I do, which I usually call like tasks or to-do or monthly or something. This is where I usually keep my monthly regular tasks, things that I need to buy, various tasks that I need to do this month that aren't like monthly habitual things, and I usually use a fourth box for my blog, but I'm switching it out for home interior tasks. I'm actually trying out Notion for all content planning, which is why I didn't include a content planning spread like I have in my previous videos, such as August. I've been moving around my content schedule a ton, like I mentioned, because of the move and everything, so it just isn't realistic to put it in hard copy and like I'm crossing things out. It's so much easier to switch things around digitally. So far, I'm really liking the flexibility of Notion because you can do so much with it, but on the flip side, I also find it overwhelming because there's just too many options. Onto my ideas and favorites pages. These ones are much simpler looking in comparison to the plaid one. My ideas spread has umbrellas, which references the secret society Logan introduces Rory to. I think this is season 4 or 5, and it's called the Life and Death Brigade. They have like different initiations and events for the group, and one of their stunts, like this one, includes jumping off a high scaffolding in formal wear with umbrella. It does look cool and fancy, but I never understood the point of this stunt, to be honest. But Logan's so charming, so I totally get Rory being swept away in this. I didn't include their motto in Omnia Paratus, which I think translates to ready for anything, but I probably should have. I actually try to keep the decor pretty simple and easy on most of my spreads so I don't get overwhelmed in trying to make them super intricate. Ultimately, I use my journal for organization, so that should be the focus for me, not just trying to make things pretty, even though that is also part of it because it's my creative outlet. This ideas page is simply to catch any content or creative ideas I have. I can just keep them all in one place. Then let's move on to the right side, which is my favorite spread. This page is to keep track of things I'm into this month, as well as some key events and memories. And then now you'll start noticing that I'm using my Tombow black pen for the headers, just to speed up this process of filling in these headers. I drew a couple of dragonflies in the top right, which references the Dragonfly Inn that Lorelai and Suki opened together. I saw some pictures online where the inside actually had purple dragonflies, which is why I made them purple. Then I went and started outlining the different boxes. I've been using the same layout structure for each of these favorite spreads, I think since April of this year, which was totally inspired by Monday Morning Designs. It's essentially her spread from when she started creating them. And I think it'll be really cool to flip through them at the end of the year to see what I've done. I like the varied shapes of these boxes. I can put in different sized things in them, such as notes or doodles, but it also gives you some structure because I tried this for 2020 and I just left it blank and I didn't really know how to place things onto the page. It wouldn't be my favorite spread if I didn't use some washi tape. This Amanda Rachel grid washi has a chokehold on me, and I'd use it on every page and spread if I could. And then I brought in a yellow mustardy one to pay homage to the inside as well as this purple one. And that's it for these pages. Here we go with the weekly spread. I've had some horizontal ones in the last few months since I find them really easy to create, but I want to switch it up and bring the vertical layout back. For this weekly spread, I drew a coffee cup. The Gilmores, again, like I mentioned, love their coffee, and Rory is depicted as a huge bookworm. So I feel like both need to be included and they go hand in hand. These are a combination of like different colors I've been using in the other spreads. I will apologize in advance for some of this footage. Even though I can see what I'm recording in a monitor when I'm doing my setup videos, I didn't realize that I stuck my head in the frame and the camera starts focusing on my head instead of the drawing. I wasn't sure how I wanted to write in the days of the week, so I kind of winged it and took my brown marker and wrote the numbers out really loud. On the left hand side next to the sections, I gave them titles. The top section is for events, and then the bottom 2/3 is for tasks. However, when I started adding in the names of the days of the week, I realized that I was supposed to put the numbers above the event section, not in it. I was already too far in, so I just went with it and finished writing in the days of the week. Luckily, I wrote the tasks heading in the middle, so I had enough room to correct my mistake. I took some white out, covered the original events heading, and rewrote it in lower but above the tasks. The rest of the spread also felt really empty to me, and while I like having a lot of negative space on these minimal spreads, I still felt like I needed something. I brought back the washi and I put a couple of overlapping pieces. And that's it. This is my setup for November. I really enjoyed putting these together, and I'm excited to get back on track with my spreads this month as I get settled in. I hope you enjoyed this video and let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks for watching and talk to you next time.